Hey, y'all, welcome to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. I'm joined this week by co-host Loren Simpson, our fellow board member. Hey, Loren, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. How are you?
Doing great. We're here to talk just a little bit about, we're going to do a legislative update. There's not much to talk about there, but you had some fun this weekend and went all the way out to Lubbock. How long a trip was that for you?
I did. Well, let's see. I left from Fort Worth to head out there, and that was like 4 hours and 20 minutes, honestly. And then driving home back here, just north of Austin on Lake Travis, was right at about 6 hours, something like that. Not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. So tell everybody what you were doing out in Lubbock this weekend.
Well, there was the Hub City NORML's 420 event that they held, and it's a 3-day event. Austin and I both went out there, and we were both asked to speak, so we did. Austin, as usual, got the audience all hype and is full of the good energy. I spoke about getting involved. And I have to say, man, they really did an amazing job with that event. The amount of vendors that showed up, the interaction even with the vendors, because sometimes vendors just don't even greet you or anything. Everybody was super talkative. There was bands, performers. We had a drag show right after me, which was amazing. We had aerial performers. There was an EDM party last night. Like it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. Freedom Act Lubbock was there. So it was good to get to know Kim and that group of people because we're going to be working with them.
Yeah, Freedom Act Lubbock is the group, for those that don't know, that will be doing or already pretty much working on the decrim effort for the city of Lubbock. And from what I've been seeing on social media and their social media, they're putting their little posters up pretty much all over the city, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah. I tell you, I pretty much have a pot leaf or something cannabis related on at all times, and I got so many people asking, are you from here? What are y'all doing in town? And everybody that I talked to was really excited to get it on the ballot. I mean, everybody wants it to stop arresting people for simple cannabis possession.
Well, sure. I mean, just like the polls that we've been touting in almost every one of our direct actions at the Capitol, you've been involved with almost all of them with me. And I much appreciate the help, you and Nick both. But, we've tried to incorporate that, or at least a piece of that, the poll that was done in January that was released by that Hobby School of Business about social issues in Texas Ledge, 88 Texas Ledge, that stipulates 8 in 10 Texans are for expanding the medical program much more than what is currently going on. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But almost 7 in 10 in this survey said, just legalize it and let the state reap the benefits of the revenue stream that would be created on all the great things that could be done with that. Of course, as well as I do, our wonderful state has an excess in funds, so they really don't care about revenue, which is sad because they could give money back to taxpayers and gain it in other realms from where people want to.
Property tax cut break, that would be amazing.
Property tax break, and that would give them the ability to spend it in a way that they want to, and still get the benefit and the revenue stream from that, right? Anyway, I got off on a little tangent there. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about what you learned about Freedom Act Lubbock and their group and what they're doing.
Well, they're going to be taking signatures to get it on the ballot, much like we did in San Marcos and Denton and Killeen and Hiker Hearts and Elgin and Austin. So that's really their main drive. On a side note that they also do is they help people run for offices, which I thought was really cool because, as we've learned, a lot, like way too many elected positions here in the state of Texas run unopposed. So that's why you things start kind of carving out the way that they are, right? As we need to have the average person step up and go, you know what? I'm going to run for mayor. I'm going to run for city council. It's a matter of getting involved. I don't know how many different angles to take about all the different ways that all of us can get involved.
Well, I think what a lot of people, on that note, right along the note of what you're saying there, I think what a lot of people don't understand about how the whole entire political system is built in tiers. And it starts at the city level, at the city, county, and then it goes on up into state and federal. And what they don't understand is they think, well, you know, this is the state of Texas. It's a big state, huge state, right? It takes you more than a day to drive across it. Okay, you're right. But here's the problem with that. There's a lot of cities in this state, and they all have input. And they have input that the state level legislators, governor and lieutenant governor included, they reach out to those city level and county level leaders and say, hey, what are you hearing in your county? What are you hearing in your city? You know, and they're talking about mayors, police chiefs, sheriffs. These are offices that can have a major impact in your state because of that fact. These legislators, they may live in that district, but they spend half their time, if they're a legislator in Austin, not paying any attention to what's going on in their district because they have to be in Austin to do their job. So they're relying on staff members and people contacting them and everything else. So if you don't think that the legislators and whatnot don't reach out to those local low-level elected officials and get their opinions, you're crazy.
Yeah.
That's where they get a lot of their opinions from.
And to that point, you know, is kind of the end game of us going around to all of the cities that allow ballot initiative. Not every city in Texas allows for ballot initiative. And I'd really like to compile that list. Anyway,
that would be a job.
Oh yeah. But if we city by city are all decriminalizing cannabis, right? We're all doing this. The smell isn't probable cause. No knock raids. Like there are some I think that need to be grouped right in and pushed through. But if we can get all of the cities to decriminalize by vote, the state is going to listen. The state is going to listen, you know. We know there's some bills that they're trying to get that to where, you know, no local municipalities or whatever can have ballot initiatives. But I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I hope that's not going to go anywhere. But again, if we can just get it decriminalized city by city, the state of Texas isn't going to.
One thing I want to point out, because we had a little confusion on that bill that you're talking about, one of the bills that you're talking about with the the ballot initiative question. And we reached out to Julie Oliver with Ground Game Texas because they're the ones pushing the being against that bill, right?
Yeah.
And based on my analysis of that bill, along with some extensive discussions with Julie and a few others, a couple attorneys, the fact that there is no portion of that bill or any of those bills, because there's one in the Senate that's a companion, right? No portion of those bills contain any part of the penal code or any reference to the penal code, which for them to affect any ballot initiative that affected decriminalization measures, it would have to. So as long as they don't pull any tricks which we all know
Yeah,
very well
yeah.
from just the last session and the decrim bill, right? That they are good at pulling tricks. But as long as they don't pull any tricks and try to attach anything, change anything, make any amendments through the process, we should be safe. We, as the cannabis decriminalization effort, should be safe from those bills. Now, that's not to say that Ground Game Texas or Mono Omega or any of these other organizations that are involved in other progressive issues, such as abortion rights, voting rights, and other things to do with policing and whatnot, where there's discrimination involved or claims of discrimination involved. Those things that these could possibly affect. But the biggest thing it's targeting when you read the bills are actually things that municipalities apparently are forcing employers that are within their jurisdiction to do and give employees or not do. And a lot of it has to do with employment regulation and stuff like that. So, and I didn't really dig into the aspects of what part of it. Just when I got to that, I said, okay, next. Right. But, yeah, so as long as they don't change that wording or add any of the different codes that would include, such as the penal code, that would include cannabis or criminalization language, right, then we should be good with where
Okay.
where
All
that's
right.
concerned.
Listen, I love to hear that. I loved, I don't know. Do we keep that down so they don't know to amend it real quick?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't want to really get out there broadcasting that real overly,
Yeah.
That's one reason why we canceled that event that we had. We had an event set up for that bill to try to get people to put their testimony in and whatnot. And we decided, whoops, we don't really want to get involved with this one. We just want to sit back and be quiet. Yeah. So, and whatever happens, happens. Because if it does pass, it's not going to be anything that's really going to hurt us, we don't think, either. As long as they don't change. I still don't
like the idea, but,
Yeah, well, I don't either because, and it really is, I'm going to say this one point and then we're going to have to take our first sponsor break. But the really big thing that gets me about any of the bills like that would take local control away in any form or fashion, when this is supposed to be a Republican controlled state, we're supposed to be a people's rights state, right? People's rights, states' rights, all those things you hear, right? So how can you turn around and write laws just like the one that they wrote that took away the ballot initiative process from us in the first place, right?
I would love to read that bill, by the way. It's like it's hard to find. I can't find it.
Well, it's not actually, I don't think it's actually a bill that did that. They just clarified the law as it was already written, basically, the way I understand it.
Wow.
But I mean, technically, what they say is we never really had it to begin with.
I was going to say, because, people have said like, hey, well, let's get that flipped. And it's like, it would take
the way I understand it, it would take a constitutional amendment to change that at this point. Yeah. Because the bill that they did, what they did do was just a clarification of what's in the state constitution, the way I understand it. So, and the way they clarified it, it says we never had that ability at the state level. Anyway, we're going to take our first sponsor break right quick. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Hub City NORML event. Wanted you to tell us about some of the vendors and all that good stuff and all the exciting things they had to offer when we come back here in just a minute.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. And I'm joined this week by co-host Loren Simpson. Hey, Loren, welcome back.
Thanks.
We were talking about what your shirt says there, Hub City NORML's 420 Fest this past weekend. Tell us a little bit about what all they had and what kind of vendors and all that kind of good stuff.
Man, they had a whole bunch of musicians, comedians. Like I mentioned before, they had an EDM party. They had fire dancers and aerial acts. And then the vendors, you had, some snacks. And there was a woman making some amazing tacos in there. But a lot of the vendors were really like handmade things. There was one vendor, and forgive me, I can't remember their names, but she had really cool rolling trays, and she did all kinds of, with like a horror spin on everything, t-shirts and really cute stuff. And another vendor that I really liked made jewelry, and she also made these little tea light candles she used colored wax and made little designs and stuff in them. And I can't say enough about, because it was an indoor and an outdoor venue.
Oh, no kidding. See, all I saw was
yeah.
pictures of the indoor arena part where like the speaker stage was, and then looked like they had vendors surrounding all three sides.
Yeah. There was an out circle and an in circle, and then outside, they even had puppies up for adoption. And
wow.
Outside they had a big food truck that was serving some yummies. There was a really nice guy, Brandon, that we met out there that was selling clothes. And, it was a really good event.
Sounds like I missed out.
And you know what, too? They allowed free camping. You could have brought your tent and just set up there. Now, I'll have to say, the amount of dust and dirt that I had on my face and in my mouth, and, it's dry here.
We are talking extreme West Texas.
Yeah. And I went to school at St. Ross and Alpine. So, I get it. But, that West Texas wind is just no joke. But it was gorgeous. It really, it was I think 70 degrees on Saturday. And
yeah.
So it was,
I was wanted to go, and Austin really wanted me to go.
Next year, my friend.
He wanted me to speak, and be there. And, but with everything that I've been involved with the collective down in Austin so far this session, and I got behind on things around the house, and then we were both, Deb and I have both had a bad cough and not up to driving to Oklahoma to go see the grandkids for my oldest grandson's birthday about 4 weeks ago. So we were like, we've got to go to Oklahoma this weekend.
Yeah. That's part of it during the legislative session, is really finding a balance. Because I'm with you. There's been some times I'm like, man, I need to clean my house. I need to do some laundry.
And
it works you over.
There's other things, that affected my decision too. But like you say, though, being at the Capitol, criminy. It'll overtake everything you do, basically, if you're really paying attention, following the bills, and doing the whole bit.
Yeah. How
it
many
can get
days do we have left now?
Oh, I'd
Are
have to
we-
actually look because
Let's-
I literally, when we were there the last time, the last meeting I had, which was week before last, was the last time I was in Austin, and it was on a Wednesday, so almost 2 weeks ago. And I walked out of the office, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go hit my rep's office for a minute, say hello. I went to John Rosenthal's office and said hello real quick, some of our partners. And then I went back to the truck and I sat down in the truck and loosened my tie, hung my jacket in the back seat, got in, loosened my tie, and I'm sitting there for a minute. And I said, yeah, I'm done for a while. And I called Austin on the way home and I said, we're at a point now, we're not going to get any more meetings, and I say that not because they don't want to give us any meetings, but they're really heavy into the regular lobby days with all the other groups and all that kind of stuff going on. Right. And then they're also no longer writing and introducing bills. They're going through committee hearings and that whole battle and going back and forth to the floor to vote and blah, blah, blah. And it's really what a lot of people call it the meat of the session at this point. And they don't have time to sit down and have a lot of meetings. And their staff members are busy taking calls and fielding, information and running stuff back and forth for them and whatnot. So I told Austin, I said, I really don't believe we're going to get any more meetings, not from us trying to just get meetings to have open conversations. So I think we're probably done with that. I said, really don't see much need for any more direct actions. I mean, we've pounded them, like you said earlier, week after week after week, almost weekly since the beginning of the session through most of March. So now it's a point I'll go if somebody calls and says, hey, my bill's got a hearing. Will you come testify? Those kind of scenarios. And if bills that we know are out there that we are most certainly going to oppose if they start to move, and I'm just going to leave that at this point because we don't want to jinx anything. But everyone will know what those bills are when that day comes, if it comes. But we will most certainly mobilize in opposition to something that's going to take Texas backwards where law reform is concerned. So I'll leave it at that. But there's a different air this session. You see it. I've seen it. The conversations are more open. And a lot of that, I believe, I'm circling back to what you were saying earlier, finally, a lot of that, I believe, is due to what you were talking about with the decrim efforts at the local levels. That the 7 cities that have already done it and passed with supermajority votes, plus San Antonio already having a ballot initiative, other cities are talking about starting their own. We had a conversation, or I had a conversation with somebody about getting one going in Houston the other day, which would be huge.
Yeah, because they're still just cite and release, I believe. I mean, fortunately, they have Kim Ogg as their DA that refuses to prosecute, right?
Sure, exactly. But
they're not decrim. They're cite and release.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So there's still more that could be done there, obviously. And then there's a lot of large cities around the Houston area where things could be done too, like, the Woodlands, Clear Lake, just to name a few.
We were talking Midland, Odessa too, between Nick and I.
That's another big area out west. So at any rate, but like I was saying, I think what has happened at the local levels and what continues to seem to be progressing at the local levels has definitely opened eyes and ears on top of, we'd be stupid to say that the whole Delta 8 market and the hemp-derived market hasn't opened some eyes to the fact that there are intoxicating substances for sale in the state of Texas legally, and the sky is not falling. And I even, some of my meetings, with a couple of different lawmakers, most of the meetings were with staff members, but a couple of them I actually got to sit down with the lawmaker themselves. And a couple of those were real interesting conversations because they told me exactly what law enforcement in their district's telling them. And one was a Republican, one was a Democrat. But they both told me that law enforcement within their districts, not the law enforcement associations, like the Sheriff's Association or the Police Chiefs Association, or the Policemen's Association, but the people themselves, the actual men in uniform in their district doing the work. And they're saying, just legalize it. We're tired of spending our time trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong. We don't have time for this stuff anymore. And nobody's getting hurt here, folks.
Yeah. It's the least of the worries. Well, and can I make a really bold point here?
Absolutely.
Is we know about the gentleman or the person that Greg Abbott is wanting to pardon for shooting a protester, right?
Yeah.
That is crazy to me because a murderer has never been pardoned, much less by Abbott. But why that is on the radar and not cannabis users? Somebody locked up for a joint. Why we can't make that happen? If we're gonna, it still remains to see if this guy gets pardoned. The judge has pushed back and that kind of stuff and has released information, but. Not to get off on that tangent, but
and he has to physically get a recommendation from the pardon board or whatever it's called,
which is appointed by Abbott.
He can't do it himself though. He can't just say, do it and make them do it. And he can't turn around and reappoint a whole nother set to get it done either. Yeah. Because that would totally destroy him politically. Right. Or in my opinion, it would.
Right.
But yeah, there's another aspect to that too, and which you brought up is the judge and jurors, and there's a whole lot of people who've come out against the idea. But it's a political stunt. That's all it is. It's a political stunt, and we all know why. He's got aspirations for higher, bigger, and better things. So the more big headline things he does while he's governor of Texas, the better that chances his way down, makes his chances down the road.
He's definitely been on one this week with all of that,
I deliberately tune out of all that kind of rhetoric because it's useless to me. All it's going to do is do what it's doing to you and rile you up unnecessarily. Right. It's not good because there's nothing you can do about it, right? Except complain. At any rate, with that note, that's a perfect segue. My point about all you can do is complain. We're going to take our second sponsor break right quick. And when we get back, we are going to dive headfirst into a little bit of a legislative update. And then I would like to talk about what your topic was for the when you spoke this weekend
for the Hub City NORML 420 event.
At the Hub City 420 Fest. Because you had a very, very important message that I've been trying to get out, and I want to help you get it out even more. So we're going to take our next sponsor break, and when we come back, we'll do just that. We'll get into the legislative update and then talk about what Loren had to say for her message this past weekend for the folks out in Lubbock when we come back.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective. I'm your host, Chris Grisolia, and I'm joined this week by our co-host and fellow board member, Loren Simpson. Welcome back, Loren.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
We were talking about Lubbock. You had a message out in Lubbock because you were a speaker there, a guest speaker, and I want you to tell our audience today what your message was and why, please.
Oh, my message is getting involved. I started out briefly with just a little bit of my history, why I use cannabis and why I chose to get involved. And then just really letting everyone know how much getting involved at whatever level you can do means. If they don't hear us, nothing's going to happen. I mean, because when you go to the Capitol, believe me, there are a lot of people there speaking very passionately about what matters to them. So if we're not there, cannabis is going to get lost in what you're trying to achieve. Like it just is going to disappear. But I was really wanted to let everybody know that getting involved at your city, local level is really just as important, if not as more important than at the state level. You've got to talk to, your mayor, your police chief, your city council, get everybody's temperature and see how they feel about it. Because that does carry up to the state level. But I also wanted them to know that if you are going to go speak to these people, please be educated. Use very, what am I trying to say? I'm flubbing here.
It happens to the best of us. Don't sweat it.
I know, I'm tired. I drove in from Lubbock yesterday. But just be nice about it. Don't come in screaming at people and pointing fingers, and that's not going to get you anywhere but thrown out. So you just have to be civil about it. And if you are educated about it, racial disparities, incarceration numbers, all of it, and it's very easy information to find, and write it down, come prepared and share that with them. It's going to come across a lot better as you're not just somebody who's looking to, get high or, a druggie or whatever. I just, this current legislative session really has changed my mind on how to talk to people. And I think partly that's because people have been more receptive. So let's carry that momentum. People will listen to you, and nobody's going to come knock on your door. Even if you write an email, nobody's going to come and say, "Oh, we saw that you were in support of this cannabis bill. Off to jail with you," or "We're going to take your kids." It's not going to happen. I mean, it just
that's the number one thing I think that keeps people from doing it is the fear. The fear. But the number two, I think, is the lack of knowledge of how to. And, both of those are, I'm sorry, they're reasons, obviously, but they're also excuses, And I'll be honest, when William passed away and I learned what I learned, and I learned that, it could have helped him, that there was actual medical clinical trials completed in the United States of America in 1947 that showed it would help epilepsy. And then think about the extraction techniques and abilities in 47 versus 2016. My mind just exploded, right? So I had to get involved, but I was scared to death. Literally scared to death. The first time I went to Austin, that somebody was going to be following me all the way home. I didn't take anything with me in terms of cannabis or cannabis products. Same thing. The first time, it was 2018. It was the first time I spoke at the Marijuana March and Freedom Festival in Fort Worth. And I had, my best friend came with me, and marched alongside me. We smoked in front of the cops in the streets, but I told him before we left the house, I said, dude, everything we take with us will be consumed before we get in the truck to come home. And there was no need. As long as I wasn't doing something stupid, nobody's coming after me. Yep. And it didn't take me very long to figure that out. And that is key. That is key. But, one thing I want to point out and touch on it, you mentioned, you talk about bringing. Texas is a big ass state. We already said that once before. It's hard. And I put out a video. I'm sure you saw it, and I've said it countless times on other episodes. Don't tell me you can't make one day happen. And I'm sorry, but I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I've been on a Wednesday evening counting my pennies, going, I ain't got enough money to make it to work on Friday to get my check if I go to work tomorrow, But if I don't go to work tomorrow, I'm going to be in even worse shape next week. What am I going to do? I've been in that position, and I still got sick and missed work, had car trouble and missed work, and I recovered from those mishaps. Okay, this is not a mishap. It's a choice. It's you making a choice to take off work to go to the Capitol. Okay. For something like Lobby Day, it's important because the more people that show up and fill those halls down there, the bigger impression it makes. They don't even have to hear what we're saying. They just have to know that's the marijuana group.
Yeah, we see it on their calendar, right?
And look at how many people's filling the halls, right? Yeah. So that one day, yes, is important, but you don't have to do that to get involved. You don't have to go to Austin to get involved. You don't even have to go to your mayor's office or your police chief's office or any of those. You can write them letters. And it's so easy today in the world of technology. You don't even have to get a piece of paper and a pen and an envelope and a stamp and do it like we had to in the old days.
Well, and I mean, use some Chat GPT for some good. Tell it, write me a letter.
It has never, ever, ever been easier for the average person And they even making it easier on the hearings on the House side, where you can submit testimony virtually this session.
Love that.
Absolutely.
I have probably voted in favor or against more bills this session than I ever have. Like I've loved that. Even like when we're sitting in, like the committee hearings, and I hear other bills that I didn't know anything. I'm like, oh snap!
Oh, well, let me look that up right quick.
Yeah, I love that.
But here's the point that so many don't understand, and that's what we're trying to stress. If you tell your mayor and your city council people and your police chief and your sheriff and your representative and your senator and the governor, if you want to write him too, call. Actually, a visit is the best, but the number 2 way to get your point across is to make a phone call. It takes about a minute and a half. Because you don't have to get on there and say all kinds of educated things, folks. I'm gonna spell it out for you real plain and simple. When it comes to something like cannabis law reform, all you gotta do, pick up the phone. You gotta find the phone number first. Okay. So find the phone number, pick up the phone, dial the number, hit call. When they answer, 50% of the time it's going to be an answering machine anyway. So you're just going to be talking to a machine. But it's still recorded into the record. So you just, when the answering machine picks up, or the person, you say, hello, my name is Chris Grisolia, and I'm in district such and such, and representative such and such is my representative. And I just want them to know that I support fully any and all forms of cannabis law reform and freeing of the plant in Texas. Thank you. And hang the phone up, and you're done. It's that simple.
That simple.
You don't have to name a bill.
We're going to show our age by hanging the phone up like this.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But
yes. But it is that simple.
Absolutely. That's all you have to say. You don't have to know any bill numbers. You don't have to say, I support decriminalizing by this, that, and the other ounces and measurement and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to know it. I support cannabis law reform in any form or fashion that would free the plant to the people.
And write it down. So you have a little script. And I mean, nobody's going to scream at you. They're going to be like, all right, thank you very much. If you get somebody on the line.
You have a very good chance, because most of the people that when you do talk to someone, the 50% of the time that you will get a person on the phone, it's going to be a staffer. Mm-hmm. And most of the staffers are for this, even though their rep or senator that they work for is not. Mm-hmm. So, on top of the fact that they're paid to record your position, plain and simple.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what they're paid to do. So, I'm going to make one last point, and you've heard me make this point again, but I'm going to make it one more time, and then we're going to call it a day, because we're running out of time. But the simple fact that the surveys, and I know you know where I'm going with this, the simple fact that the surveys, the most recent surveys, and even ones last year and the year before, consistently have said that 67 to 70% of the Texas population, doesn't matter what demographics they survey, doesn't matter what political background they survey, they all say the same thing. 67 to 70% of the people say they support legalization of cannabis in Texas. Okay. That being said, there are 29 million people in Texas, right? If you want cannabis law reform in Texas and you support it, if there were 67%, that's like almost 18 million people, right? If 18 million people were to call their representatives and their senators and make that little statement this conversation would be over.
Right. Yeah. We wouldn't be here right now.
The problem is it's 5 to 10,000 that are making the phone calls, and it's only hundreds that are showing up at the Capitol. And I get it. Texas is a big state. But like I said, number one is showing up. Number two is a phone call, and it only takes 5 minutes. It don't even take 5 minutes if you're that brief. You know, rarely will they ask you any questions. They may say, do you have any bills in mind? And just say, I support any bill that ends prohibition or works toward ending prohibition.
Right.
You know, you know, the idea is we don't want everything willy-nilly. We want legal, regulated, tested, good products for people to be able to know what they're getting reliably. And if the state gets a little something off of that, which shouldn't be any more than any other sales tax, not crazy like these other states have done, then so be it, right? But free it up, folks. You know, as I don't have that shirt on today, but my one shirt says it is time, you know, because it's beyond time, right?
It's beyond time. And listen,
any final thoughts, Loren?
Yeah, we haven't lost a ballot initiative yet, and we're not going to. So just please come get involved. It's way more fun than I can even explain. We work hard, we play hard. Come get involved. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Let's go Lubbock.
Absolutely. You know, and that's you know, talking about the ballot initiatives, that's a good point. Because that 67 to 70% showing up there, sometimes even more, is showing up there on those votes. If you can vote for it in a ballot box, pick up the phone. We're still in session, folks. We didn't really do a legislative update, but we have bills that would fully legalize it. They're just not moving. They're not getting hearings. Why? Because nobody's pushing for it.
We can only do so much.
Or not, not enough people are pushing for it. There's the decrim bill that's moving. We just saw the medical bill went over to the Senate last week. So that's moving. But yeah, you know, if you can vote, pick up the phone. If you can vote for a decriminalization measure in your local city, then pick up the phone and make a phone call. You know, and if you can't make a phone call, then do something that would make the equivalent of that. And this is what I've started suggesting to people. If you can't go and you can't pick up the phone and make a phone call, then write an email or write a letter and get 4 other friends to write a letter and put with yours and send it. So that when you're sending it, there's 5 of them that show up instead of 1. That'll be the equivalent of 1 phone call.
Yeah. And if we all did that, I mean,
I'm telling you, this conversation would be over.
Yeah. It'd be little tweaks and stuff like that, you know, will probably always need to happen, but nothing of this magnitude.
Just like anything and everything else. I mean, they're constantly tweaking the laws on everything, right? Because society changes, things change, technology changes, things have to constantly be updated, right? So yeah, it's not going to go away. Right. But the prohibition versus legalization conversation would be over.
Right. Yeah.
In the state of Texas, if 67%, if 18 million people wrote emails and made phone calls, it would be over.
Yeah.
And it might be too late this session. It's not really. Stranger things have happened. But we definitely
we've shown up for the Senate.
We definitely got to get people ready for 2025 a lot more than what they were for this session going in. There was just, you know, we got to be better prepared and get some momentum coming out of the election in November the week they're pre-filing bills, start contacting offices and saying, hey, and we just from that point on, next session, we got to beat their doors down.
Mhm.
You know, and
I'll be there.
you know I will. Thanks, Loren. I appreciate it. I wish we were supposed to have a guest today, but he didn't make it for whatever reason. Hopefully he'll reschedule and we'll have him on another show. But it's been a great one. Great conversation. I loved hearing about the event out there in Lubbock, and you know, we need to keep up with that and keep the people around here knowing what we're doing out there, so they can see that we can come to their city and help them there too.
Yeah, and they're willing to come to ours. We just have to do this networking, and yeah, absolutely.
At any rate, that's going to be our show for tonight. Thank you for joining me, Loren, and thank everybody else for joining us and tuning in, and hope you enjoyed the show and hope you come back next week.